Kevin Martin was a bucket getter, being a 20-point per game scorer over multiple seasons and teams, creating his looks from running off screens hard for threes and mid-range shots, even though his form was quite unconventional, while also having an uncanny ability to draw fouls similar to that of James Harden. But his career is often overlooked as he put up large numbers on bad teams, as Martin was one of the lone bright spots, before injuries caught up to him, ending his career early after it looked like he could have gone on well into his late 30s. This is a look back on Kevin Martin's career. Kevin Martin was born and raised in Zanesville, Ohio, where he grew up idolizing Michael Jordan, wanting to be just like Mike. Martin went on to play his high school ball at Zanesville High, excelling on the court as he would finish 4th for Ohio Mr. Basketball his senior year, garnering the interest of mid-major Division I schools, and as Kevin Martin would commit to play his college ball at Western Carolina. Kevin Martin, as soon as he hit the court, was the number one option on the team. While his teams at Western Carolina struggled, he did not. Over 3 years at Western Carolina, Kevin Martin averaged 23.3 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 1.7 assists, earning all conference honors every season. And Martin, after his junior season and being one of the top scorers in the country, decided to turn pro. Though he was not a top prospect entering the draft, with many people raising concerns over the level of competition he was playing, but Martin had done enough consistently for 3 years, convincing some teams. In the 2004 NBA draft with the 26th overall pick, Kevin Martin was selected by the Sacramento Kings. Martin was joining a Kings team that had prior success with Mike Bibby, Peja Stojakovic, Brad Miller, Chris Webber, and Doug Christie. But the Kings had shifted things mid-year, going for a rebuild, trading away Chris Webber to the 76ers and Doug Christie to the Magic for Cuttino Mobley. Prior to the moves, Kevin Martin was not really playing yet, as he was learning how to defend from Doug Christie, as that was his primary reason for not being on the court. After the trade, he got a little more minutes and started to pick up and learn new tricks from his new teammate in Cuttino Mobley, with Kevin Martin finishing his rookie season playing in 45 games, averaging 10.1 minutes and 2.9 points, as the Sacramento Kings went 50-32, making the playoffs as a 6th seed, to face the Seattle Supersonics with Ray Allen and Rashard Lewis round 1, where Ray Allen proceeded to get hot and the Kings sorely missed players like Webber and Christie, resulting in a quick exit for the Kings in 5 games, with Martin not touching the floor the entire series. In the offseason, the Kings continued the downward trend as they lost Cuttino Mobley in free agency. The Kings started the year with a mediocre start before the Kings again decided to continue to rebuild, trading away Peja Stojakovic for Ron Artest, who was looking for a clean slate after the Malice at the Palace incident. On the bright side for Kevin Martin with the moves, he was playing more time, splitting time coming off the bench, and when Bonzi Wells was injured, getting a few starts, with Martin averaging 10.8 points, 3.6 rebounds, and 1.3 assists on the year, helping the Kings sneak back into the playoffs as they went 44-38, getting an 8 seed in a round 1 matchup against the San Antonio Spurs and its trio of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. The Spurs jumped out to a 2-0 lead in convincing fashion. Game 3 was different as the Kings would hang around throughout the game but trailed late by 1 with only a couple seconds to go before the Kings stole the ball and got on the fast break, with the ball being passed up the court to Kevin Martin, who'd hit the buzzer beater on Tim Duncan, winning the game. Game 4, the Kings rode a surprise performance from Bonzi Wells to tie the series up. However, the next 2 games were all San Antonio, defeating the Kings in 6 games. In Kevin Martin's first playoff experience, he had elevated his play in key moments to averaging 13.2 points and 5 rebounds. In the offseason, Bonzi Wells left in free agency, meaning the shooting guard position was now Martin's, with most expecting a breakout season from him. And Kevin Martin delivered, becoming the number 1 option on the team, averaging 20.2 points, 2.2 assists, and 4.3 rebounds. And for his play, Martin fell just short of the Most Improved Player award, as Monte Ellis beat him out by 3 points, which is the closest margin in the award's history. Kevin Martin this season also became the second player in NBA history to score 20 or more points in a game while only making 1 field goal, as he relied on the free throw line for most of his points, which was a theme throughout his career. Yet as everything was going well for Kevin Martin, the Kings were on the opposite end of things, going 33-49, missing the playoffs. And after the big year, Kevin Martin got a new contract to stay in Sacramento. Kevin Martin proved the Kings wise for the deal next season, where he continued to up his play, becoming the 6th leading scorer in the NBA with 23.7 points, while also averaging 4.5 rebounds and 2.1 assists, which his numbers may have been even higher if he did not miss several games with a groin injury. Kevin Martin's numbers were also up as the team had traded away Mike Bibby as they were no longer competing for the playoffs, with Martin leading the Kings to a similar record to the prior year in 38 and 44, missing the playoffs. Next season was all Kevin Martin for the Kings again as they traded away Ron Artest in the offseason. Martin increased his numbers as a result to 24.6 points, 2.7 assists, and 3.6 rebounds, with Kevin Martin even having a 50-point game this season. But Martin did miss some time with an ankle injury. On top of this, the Kings traded away Brad Miller and John Salmons, resulting in the team struggling big time, finishing 17 and 65. And after the bad year, the Kings had a high draft pick where they selected Tyreke Evans, who got off to a hot start in his NBA career next season. And because of Evans, the Kings not competing, Kevin Martin became expendable. Shortly into the season, the Kings traded away Kevin Martin in a large 3-team deal to the Houston Rockets as a part of the Tracy McGrady trade that he was sent to New York, as Kevin Martin was essentially being brought into Houston to be McGrady's replacement. Kevin Martin came into the team to be the main guy on offense with Luis Scola as the second option, as Yao Ming went down with a career-ending injury, with Martin averaging 20.6 points, 3.6 rebounds, and 2.4 assists between the Kings and the Rockets this year, guiding the Rockets to a 42 and 40 record, but missed the playoffs. Next season was more of the same for Kevin Martin as the go-to guy for the team, as Kevin Martin increased his averages slightly with more comfortability with the new team to average 23.5 points, 2.5 assists, and 3.2 rebounds, while also leading the league in free throws made with 594. Where Martin led the Rockets to a solid season going 43 and 39, but since it was the Western Conference, they had missed the playoffs. In the offseason, it looked as though Kevin Martin was going to be traded to the Hornets as a part of the Chris Paul deal that was infamously vetoed by the league. Kevin Martin was returning for another year in Houston, where he was still the leading scorer, averaging 17.1 points to go along with 2.8 assists and 2.7 rebounds. Martin's numbers were down because he would miss some time with an injury as he picked up a shoulder injury and decided to play through it, resulting in a labral tear in his right shoulder. Kevin Martin's numbers also dipped after rule changes were implemented by the NBA, as they would be calling less fouls when the offensive player initiated the contact, resulting in less free throw attempts this season, which was always a large portion of Martin's points. With Kevin Martin not at full strength, the Rockets missed the playoffs again after going 34 and 32. In the offseason, the Oklahoma City Thunder could not reach a new contract with James Harden, so the Rockets saw an opportunity, trading Kevin Martin with Jeremy Lamb and 3 future picks that became Steven Adams, Alex Abrines, and Mitch McGary to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Cole Aldrich, Daquan Cook, James Harden, and Lazar Hayward. Kevin Martin was now on a Thunder team that had come off winning the Western Conference, led by Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and Serge Ibaka, with Martin's new role changing in Oklahoma City to being the third scorer on the team. Martin on the year would average 14 points, 1.4 assists, and 2.3 rebounds, helping the Oklahoma City Thunder continue their dominant form going 60 and 22, entering the playoffs as a 1 seed. In getting a round 1 matchup, Kevin Martin faced his prior team in the Houston Rockets, now headed by James Harden and Chandler Parsons. The Thunder jumped out to a quick 2-0 start, but the Thunder had lost Westbrook the rest of the playoffs after Patrick Beverley's attempt to steal the ball when a timeout was being called. They would win the game 3 as it went late into the game on a miraculous shot from Durant, but after this, the Thunder missing Westbrook became more noticeable as they would drop game 4 and 5. In game 6, Kevin Martin would stop the Thunder's slide, proceeding to score 25 points, pushing the Thunder into round 2. Round 2, the Thunder met the grit and grind Grizzlies with Marc Gasol, Mike Conley, Tony Allen, and Zach Randolph. The Thunder won game 1 after a big game from Durant late, but this seemed to be all that the team had in its tank, severely missing Westbrook as they would go on to lose the next 4 games despite big performances throughout from KD. In the postseason, even despite the team losing Russell Westbrook, Kevin Martin put up similar numbers to the regular season, disappointing a bit with 14 points, 1.3 assists, and 3.1 rebounds. In the offseason, Kevin Martin was a free agent and would sign a contract to join the Minnesota Timberwolves, joining them via a sign-and-trade. Martin was wanted by the Minnesota Timberwolves to be the second option on the team to Kevin Love to helpfully push them over the hump. Kevin Martin fitted in nicely alongside Love, while also being set up throughout by Ricky Rubio, where Martin averaged 19.1 points, 1.8 assists, and 3 rebounds, as he helped the Minnesota Timberwolves improve, going 40-42, yet missed out on the playoffs. And after another year of missing the playoffs, Kevin Love's time in Minnesota was at its end, with the team trading him in the offseason to the Cavaliers, with the primary return being the first overall pick in Andrew Wiggins. Kevin Martin entered next season in Minnesota as the number one option on the offense, where he'd averaged 20 points, 3.6 rebounds, and 2.3 assists, but only managed to go for 39 games as Martin fractured his right wrist. With Kevin Martin out and Love gone, the team took a big step back, going 16-66. But when Martin was out, a rookie by the name of Zach LaVine was filling in his shoes. When Kevin Martin returned from injury next season, it was clear he was not what he once was all the way, resulting in Minnesota Timberwolves deciding to waive Kevin Martin mid-year after the team already had his replacement in Zach LaVine. Kevin Martin, to finish the season, went on to sign a contract joining the San Antonio Spurs, who were led by Kawhi Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge, on top of having the Spurs' original aging trio of Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker. Kevin Martin in San Antonio settled into a bench role to provide offense in the second unit, seeing a decrease in his numbers to 9.3 points, 2 rebounds, and 1.1 assists on the season, playing an important bench role with the Spurs as they went 67-15 entering the playoffs as a 2-seed. Round 1, the Spurs swept the Memphis Grizzlies as both of Memphis' star players in Conley and Gasol were out injured. Round 2, the Spurs met Martin's old team in the Oklahoma City Thunder. Game 1, San Antonio won via a blowout behind a big game from Aldridge. Game 2 was close as Aldridge played well again, but the Thunder responded holding on late as the Spurs failed to get the final shot off. The Thunder and Spurs split the next 2 games as Leonard and Durant went at one another, with the series looking tightly contested before Westbrook and Durant stepped up their play the next 2 games, sending the Spurs home. Kevin Martin over the playoffs found his role reduced, and he'd averaged only 9.8 minutes and 4.4 points. After the season was over and done, Kevin Martin knew his time was up, deciding to retire as injuries and wanting to be around to raise his kid played factors. Kevin Martin, over 12 years in the league, had averaged 17.4 points, 3.2 rebounds, and 1.9 assists. Kevin Martin will be remembered as a scorer first and foremost, creating his points from various ways, from his jump shot, whether it was a 3 or a mid-range, and his knack for drawing fouls. Even though his shot form was very unconventional, it fell quite frequently, helping Kevin Martin become a regular 20-point-per-game scorer across several teams, who unfortunately did struggle a fair amount, resulting in Kevin Martin never being named an All-Star, picking up any accolades, as it looked like Kevin Martin was going to have a late-on career into his later years to maybe pick up a ring. It was derailed before injuries caught up to him. Nevertheless, K-Mart put up a solid career as a bucket getter, being a bright spot on bad teams. Thanks for watching this video on Kevin Martin's career. If you have any other recommendations for players for me to do in the future, please leave them in the comments below and I may not decide to do them. Who knows? Thanks again for watching. This has been Skid Denver.